We bring the news. We bring the action. We bring it live. This is 101.9 ChaiFM. A walk down memory lane with our very own Jewish encyclopedia. It's Talk of the Town with Isaac Reznik, only on your station, 101.9 ChaiFM.
Welcome, good morning, 8 minutes past 9. Cloudy in Johannesburg, but we need a little cooler weather. It's been very, very hot. And we have a very, very special guest in the studio. I did announce it a few days ago, Jono David. I'll introduce him in a few moments. But as usual, we start off those, unfortunately, who passed away during the week. And there was Rose Bloch, and I'll come back to that in a few moments. Percy Reichman, Helen Green, Jean Ray Polovin, Benjamin Favis, Tanya Atia, Faye Shapiro, and Elaine Ballon. Now, I just want to come back to Rose Bloch. I'm sure many of you remember her, very, very involved with the Shaare Tzedek Hospital here in Johannesburg. She ran the offices for many, many years. The sister of Molly Blackman and brother-in-law Julian Blackman, very involved in the Jewish community. And Rose also was a member of the Ladies Guild, Federation of Synagogues Ladies Guild, also on the executive of the then what we call Federation of Synagogues, and I served with her when she was chairperson of the Federation of Synagogues, a newspaper called the Federation Chronicle, and later we changed the name to Jewish Tradition. So on behalf of all, I want to wish the respective families Chaim Tovim Marukim, a long and a good life, and may they have no further sorrow. On a very, very happy note, I did announce this on Friday morning, but for those listeners who do not hear it, because I was talking about the streets of, Dorfdien, Jeppe, going Cyrildien, etc. John T. and Lauren Cohen on the birth of triplets, 2 girls and a boy. And of course, John T. Cohen is the son of the late Rosalie and of course Lester Cohen, now living in Australia. And Lester Cohen for many years and Rosalie were involved with the Cyrildien Shul. Lester succeeded me as Gabba of the Cyrildien Shul when I moved out of the area. And Lester's late father was Meyer Cohen, and he worked for the Ochre Bazaars for many, many years. He was a buyer responsible for, I would say, all the kosher products that the Ochre Bazaars used to import and sell. And of course, we want to wish Mazel Tov to the in-laws, that's Leon and Bernice Klugman, and everyone, hearty Mazel Tov, Chuppah, Ma'asim Toivim, and may they have only nachas from their children. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we have in the studio a very special guest, and that is Jono David. I had him on the air about a year ago now. Jono David is an American now living in Japan. He'll give us his background, and he travels all over. He's been all over the world, basically, taking pictures of old shuls, wherever there is Jewish communities. So good morning, Jono. What a pleasure to have you in the studio again.
Good morning, Isaac. Nice to be back. Nice to see you.
Nice to be
Looking
back,
well.
Yes, right. So, Jono, just give us a little bit of your background, because we're now on a morning show, and the last time we spoke was in the evenings. We may have a different audience. We have, I suppose, most of the housewives listening in this morning.
Yes, you're an early riser now.
Right. By the way, this program, is repeated tonight at 7 o'clock.
I have to stay here all day?
No, you don't have to stay here all day, but you can tune in tonight for those who miss it at 7 p.m. tomorrow, to this evening.
Okay, fantastic. My background, as you say, I am an American. I'm also a British citizen. I have been residing in Osaka, Japan for 22 years. And a very long, complicated story short, my life has just led me to an interest in Jewish documentation photographically, and I've built my life around that and all my travel around that. And the last, 3.5 years, in August 2012, I came down to South Africa for the first of 8 legs of a Jewish Africa photographic documentation project, and I am now in the smack dab in the middle of my 8th and final leg. So on this journey, I've been in this last journey, I've been in Egypt, which I didn't think I'd get to for various logistical reasons, but I decided just to get on a plane and go and skirt the bureaucracy. And then I went to Cameroon and Gabon. Then I'm here, and then the final bit, the next few weeks after here, is to Senegal, Morocco for a second time, Ceuta, a little Spanish enclave in the north of Morocco, and Tunisia. And then I'm going to do some R&R in Israel with some friends and family.
Right. What did you now do in Egypt? Or did you find anything very interesting? Or
well, I didn't meet any community members there because there are a whopping 12 people left, apparently. I was in touch with the president of the community, a woman named Magda Haroun, who is, I imagine she's in her 60s. I had a few phone calls with her. But basically, I was not able to get the so-called official permission through the authorities because most of the Jewish sites, the synagogues, cemeteries, are controlled by, or overseen perhaps is maybe a better word, by the Egyptian Antiquities Department. And I am not a credentialed member of the press, and that was just a hurdle too high for me to get over. So I ultimately thought I wouldn't be able to go, but then I decided, Egypt just is too big a piece, too important a piece in the history of the story of Jewish Africa. Jews have been there in Africa, in Egypt, arguably longer than anywhere else on the continent. So I decided very late, I'm just going to get a ticket, go as a tourist, which is easy to do, get your tourist visa on arrival. And I hired a local personal guide. And without being too specific, I told them I was interested in a few Jewish sites, but I didn't tell them what I was doing, what my actual motive was. And in the end, I came away with far more photographs than I ever had hoped to. I got into 2 of the synagogues that are there. I found a few other little details here and there. I got into one of the cemeteries. So that was about as much as I could hope for, and far more than I ever dreamed that I would get. So I'm really pleased that I made that.
Did you manage to get anything at the Geniza there? There's a very big Geniza in Cairo.
No, all that was just inaccessible. That was just way too much to think I would be able to do stuff like that. There's the doors, if I could open those doors, I can't imagine what would be there.
Could imagine.
Yeah, so I can't... I feel too disappointed with what I came away with.
Right.
Yeah.
And then where from Egypt you went to?
Well, on this trip, then I went back to Cameroon. I was there 2 years ago, but I went to Cameroon really because that was my door to Gabon. It was just this community. When I was in Cameroon 2 years ago, by a stroke of luck, I met this man there named Pascal, who was from Gabon, and he was a Pentecostal minister. And at that time, 2 years ago, he was just a fledgling, still is fledgling, but even just at the very beginning, it was his first visit in Cameroon as well, visiting the Beth Yeshurun Jewish community in Cameroon. And it was a stroke of luck because if I hadn't have met him, I wouldn't have thought about Gabon. So that planted the seed of, I've got to add Gabon to my Jewish Africa photo project. And so it was just logistically easier to go to Cameroon, go with someone from the community there who speaks English and French. I don't speak French. So this person accompanied me there. We spent a few days in Gabon, and it was very interesting. This community, this man, his flock, he told them about 2 years ago he wants to switch over and follow Judaism, and he lost about 2/3 of his community, which is, I reckon, about 100 or so people. But it was an amicable split, and now he's working hard to follow the tenets of Judaism. He's renounced the other beliefs that he had before, and for me, for my project, that's really what I count as photographable. Yes. I don't include Messianic Jews or other,
yes,
forms of like that.
Right now, is there any Jewish, call it institutions in Gabon, like old synagogues or
No.
nothing?
These his old church is now called a synagogue.
Right.
Okay, that's what they call it. They actually have a kosher, mini-sized Sefer Torah that was provided to them by a rabbi in the United States who came to visit them a couple of years ago. I took them some mezuzot and some kippot, and they have other things from their visits, this Pascal's visit to Cameroon.
Are they officially recognized as Jews?
No. They're on their way. And the spiritual leader of the community in Cameroon, a fantastic guy who's done everything for me to make my visits in Cameroon and Gabon possible. Very grateful to him, Serge Tele. After I went there 2 years ago, he went to Israel for about 6 months or so to yeshiva. When I was just back in Cameroon last week, I wasn't sure where he was. And I said, hey, I'm in town. I'd really like to see you. And he wrote back and he said, actually, I'm in Israel. He's back in yeshiva. So, they're on their way.
They're on their way,
yeah,
yes.
But it'll take years to get, I think, fully recognized, converted, just like the Abba Yudaya Jews in Uganda who have been practicing Judaism for 100 years.
Right. I'll tell you when then that's Cameroon, Gabon, and where else then?
On this trip, then I came here. I came to Joburg really more for to catch up with people. Now that I've been here, as I said, I broke this project up into 8 trips, and
right.
7 of them I've managed to come back to South Africa.
Right.
And so I really came here for some social contact, of course, to get on your show.
Right.
And so here I am, and I was in Cape Town for the weekend. Fantastic, love it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
The best city in the world.
Oh yeah.
So
beautiful. I couldn't come here and not spend a weekend down there.
Yeah. Now tell me from here, where are you going to in Africa?
I'm going to Senegal on Saturday. I go to Senegal, and I'll be there for about 4 days only, which is really enough. I am meeting a few interesting people. There's a man who, if anybody out there, I'm sure people do know Tali Nates, the director of the
Holocaust Center.
Right. She is an amazing woman, and there's so many things she's done for me as well. And in relation to Senegal, she's connected me to some very key people there,
right,
who are doing research on an old German transit center station that was there. That is being researched now. So it's a bit sketchy. I'll hopefully find out much more clearly this week. So I'm going to go visit that, and I also have an appointment with the Israeli ambassador to Senegal for a little chat and a commentary on Israeli-Senegalese relations. So putting a few Jewish connections together in Senegal.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back in a few moments. And then I'm going to ask Jono to give us all his the website where you can look at all those wonderful, wonderful photographs.
What's going on in the community? Let's find out with Isaac Reznik.
Welcome back. We have in the studio Jono David, the Chaim HaYehudim Jewish Photographic Library. He's been all over the world. He just told us about some of his trips to Africa. And now, Jono, other places in Africa, like, for example, the Congo, Belgium Congo, or the French Congo, today it's called the Democratic Republic of Congo, or Ethiopia, or Sudan. Have you been to any of those places as well?
I was in the DRC about a year and a half ago, and Ethiopia I was in last year.
Yes,
yeah.
Because the DRC did have a strong Jewish community there. I think it was Elizabethville or
Lubumbashi.
Lubumbashi, with Elizabethville originally, because a lot of the Sephardi Jews who came from Rhodes Island, they went to the DRC. Then a lot of them also went to what they call then Northern Rhodesia today.
Zambia, yeah.
Right. And then, of course, a lot came to South Africa. And in Sudan at all, or
no,
Ethiopia?
I have not been to Sudan. But yes, I was in Ethiopia. That was very interesting. I'm very aware, of course, that there was this exodus of Jews in the 80s, 90s. But still, there were. I thought there would be a little bit more to photograph there than I actually found.
Yes.
Now, the Jews that are there, it depends who you speak to. Some people would say there are no Jews there, that the people who are the Jews there are crossovers who have ulterior motives. There are some who would say there might be a few hundred there to a few thousand. And then there are some who would say that there might be 20, 30, 40,000 left there. I can't speak to which person is actually correct, but I found in Gondar some of the old remnants of some of the villages that they used to live in, and one of the current communities, which is quite active. But I confess I'm not an expert on their specific background.
Right, of Ethiopia, we remember we had that operation,
Solomon.
Where magic carpet, whatever it was, they flew them out.
Right.
All what they call them falashas. They flew them all out to Israel. Remember, overnight, hundreds and hundreds of them arrived in Israel, and of course, the emperor of Ethiopia was Haile Selassie. Do you remember? Does that ring a bell?
It rings a bell, but I wasn't around then.
And he was very pro Israel. When he was the emperor. And of course, Ethiopia was also then a Italian. It was during the war, the Italians came into Ethiopia as well. And Addis Ababa was the capital.
Right.
Right.
And in Eritrea as well. Of course,
Eritrea as well,
right.
Yes.
And I was in Eritrea on my last trips last August. That was fascinating. There's literally a one-man Jewish community left there. His name is Sammy Cohen. He's British. He was born. Where was he born? I can't. Honestly, I can't remember if he was actually born there. But he's split his life there, and now he has his life. He has part of his life in Israel and also in Italy. And he's the remaining Jew there, and he takes care of everything. Literally, a one-man Jewish community.
Have you been to Kenya at all?
Yes, I was there. It's almost 3 years ago now.
Yeah, because Kenya's had a strong Jewish community as well in Nairobi.
Right, and Mombasa.
And Mombasa as well, and of course Uganda as well, because a lot of during the apartheid era here in South Africa, a lot of Jews, fled from South Africa and went to live in Uganda as well, and also in Tanganyika. Today it's called Tanzania. Right. Now, if you've got any questions or anything you want to ask Jono, please feel free to SMS 34519, or you can phone in on 074 654 7335. This budget speech is probably one of the most important in our history, not only for the ratings agency, but for each of us as South Africans. Fine Minister Pravin Gordhan will deliver his 2016-2017 budget speech to Parliament on Wednesday, and ChaiFM will be bringing you the speech live on your radio. Regular programming will fall away from the start of the budget speech at 2 p.m. We cannot afford to miss this budget. 109 ChaiFM, 101.9 megahertz of dynamic business talk. That's tomorrow. That's Wednesday, the 24th at 2 p.m. So we're now talking to Jono David, and he's told us some of the African countries he's visited. Now, tell us some of the other countries, like, for example, in Europe, where you've been to.
Well,
I'm doing this because some of our listeners haven't heard you before.
Right. No, I get that. I haven't. Jewish Africa, I just should say, has been my most complete and in-depth real structured photo project that I've done. So work preceding that, as in Europe, as you mentioned, I didn't ever really do a specific thing. I really just chose places to go to and just pieced it together. More or less randomly. So I didn't have any specific project. But I've covered a lot in the northeast of Europe, the Baltics, Poland. But my oldest photos in my archives, and when I really got started doing this in the late 90s, Czech Republic, Slovakia.
Lithuania, have you been to?
Yes, I've been in Lithuania a couple of times, most recently in 2011. So I have a really nice, pretty good, fresh selection of photos there. But there's other places in Central Europe I have not been back to, and that was really before I upped my photographic skills and abilities, and really also perhaps more importantly, before I realized I was on the path that I'm on now, photographically speaking. And so if you go back and look at my archives in, for example, the Czech Republic, you're not going to see anything of really any merit there.
Right.
So I do need to find time to go back and freshen that up.
Can you give us some details of your website so our listeners can get in?
My website is jewishphotolibrary.com.
JewishPhotoLibrary.com.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to download and look at
No, can't download. Nope. Yeah, my photos are protected.
You're right, but I mean, you'll be able to look at...
Yeah, I currently have over 100,000 images there. From,
that's what I mean, they can look at them.
Oh, yes, everything's there. More than 100,000 images from 110 countries and territories currently.
And are they all identified? And for example...
Yeah, it's pretty organized, so you can search by country, you can search by... I have an alphabetical listing, so a few categories, and I have some highlights galleries, because of course no one's going to look at 100,000 photographs. So.
Right, now you say you've been to Lithuania. Have you been to the Ukraine at all?
No, that's a part of Europe that I haven't gotten to. I'd love to.
And Russia, Warsaw...
I've been in, I have some...
to
from
Moscow,
St. Petersburg area, but I don't have a huge amount. And I have, from 1997... I did a trip across Russia, and I have some few old photos from Irkutsk, Siberia. But again, that falls into the less than stellar category.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, they're there. And but the interesting thing is about this one synagogue that I went to there. They had a big fire, an electrical fire, I believe it was. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe let's say 8 years ago. Let's just say. And so I realized during the process of what I'm doing that. Even though the photographs I have are not necessarily good in and of themselves, they're still important as a record. Not that I am the only one with photographs of that shul before the fire, of course, but it's just a way of preservation. And I realized during the photographing trips that I do that my photographs are a sliver of contribution to the preservation of Jewish culture and history in photographic form. Other people do. Books and other written scholarship. So it's important in any form, and so you never know what's going to happen to community.
Have you been to Germany?
Yes.
And did you do a
little bit of work
yes.
there? And again, not the best, but yes, there's some stuff in there.
Right, and Poland, you mentioned you've been.
Poland, yeah.
And I'm sure you must have been there into Latvia as well. Yes, Czechoslovakia, Hungary.
Yeah, well, but as I said, Czech and Slovakia, those are not the photos. If you want to go and get an idea of what I'm photographing, don't go to those categories. Don't go to those countries. Look at my Africa stuff. Let's focus on that.
Okay, right. Okay, I'm just, and of course, what about now on the West Coast, like, for example, like Holland and Portugal and Spain?
Yeah, again, I have a fair variety of stuff.
Because Spain must have a very rich history there.
Absolutely, yeah. But the thing is, as I said, my biggest focused project has been Jewish Africa since August 2012. Right. And so the other areas that you're alluding to, I've been in those places. Many of them I do have some Jewish photographs, but it's case by case, whether I was doing what I was doing then or my photographic skills. It just sort of is a mishmash.
Right.
It depends on the area you talk about. So,
right. So
and in other places like in New Zealand and in Australia, I have much newer photos, and they're much better. And so.
Yes.
But yeah, with 110 countries and territories in the collection, there's...
Well, let's get back to say, South Africa. Now, have you been to the country communities?
Yes,
There was a rich history there.
I have hundreds of galleries from South Africa. Okay. South Africa, of course, as you know, and as I'm sure your listeners know, it has 70% of Africa's current population of about 100,000. There's about 70,000 here. So Jewish communities have been spread across this country for a very long time. And, of course, in many of those locations today, there's nothing left except perhaps an old synagogue or a cemetery.
The cemetery.
And even other communities, there was never an established community. There might have just been even a single Jewish
Jew
resident,
living there, yes.
And that's recognized as just a place where Jews
we have the
lived.
one province called the Free State, used to be called the Orange Free State, where in the 1950s there were 48 communities, little dorps, as we used to call them, little where there was always a Jewish presence. And every one of them had a little synagogue, unless there was only one person or two people. But that's how it was. All throughout the whole of South Africa then, wherever you went, you would find a Jewish presence in those communities. And of course, a lot of the Jews who came, what they called smokers. They were peddlers. And of course, they established businesses, and then they opened up hotels. And, this is how it grew.
Yeah,
but wherever you went, and particularly if you went now, say, to what used to call the Transvaal, it's now Mpumalanga, or you go to the Northwest Province and all that, you'll find Jewish communities all over South Africa, and beautiful shuls as well.
Absolutely.
And very well maintained. A lot of them have closed. A lot of them are now used for have been sold. Some of them are still kept as museums. There's a beautiful one. I'm sure if you've been to Oudtshoorn.
I have, yes.
That's a museum now. It's a beautiful there. And they used to have two shuls.
Well,
there.
there's two. There's one
Yes.
that's actually was housed inside a museum, and it's
Yes.
still technically a functioning synagogue.
Yes.
And then there's the famous one that stands on its own.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
the one.
right.
And you know what it is? It's based. The Oudtshoorn was known as the Jerusalem of South Africa. That's what it was called. And the people who came from Europe, they came from a place called Kelm, and they built a synagogue exactly based on what the Kelm synagogue looked like in Lithuania, where they came from. And that's the one that today is still the museum. It's there. And it was it's unbelievable how they maintained it. And of course, the other one, if you go to Cape Town near Parliament, you've got the Cape Town, the main synagogue there.
The Garden Shul.
The Garden Synagogue. But next door it is the small shul, which
Right.
is now a museum as well.
Right.
That was the first synagogue that was built there. And then, of course, in Port Elizabeth as well, you've got the same type of thing.
Right. I've been to all of those places you've listed, yeah.
You've been to all that's really...
And as many as I've been to, there are so many more I haven't been
There's
to.
so many more.
Tomorrow, I'm spending the day with a remarkable man, Rabbi Silberhaft.
Moshe Silberhaft, yes.
And we're on an excursion out past Middelburg, out to Bethel.
Bethel, yes.
So I'm not exactly what's in store for tomorrow.
Yeah,
but
well,
he and I have
Middelburg.
been on many an adventure, and he is. I owe much of my success to him.
Well, Middelburg, there's Witbank, and there's Bethel, and there's Kinross, and there's Kendall. I mean, I've been to every single Jewish community in South Africa long before Moshe Silverhoff came on the scene, because he's still a young man. But I'm going back 60, 70 years ago, when I traveled the whole of South Africa visiting every Jewish community.
Well,
and as I said,
he must be hot on your heels. That man gets around.
and as I said, there were 40 odd communities in the Free State, which I've been to every single one of them, and I can mention every one now if you want me to.
No.
Okay. Right, I'm just telling you that. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to play some music, and we'll be back in a few moments.
You're listening to Talk of the Town with Isaac Reznik on 101.9 Chai FM.
Welcome back, 20 minutes to 10. We have in the studio Jono David, and I introduced him, the Chaim Yehudim Jewish photographer. You can get onto his website. That's www.jewishphotolibrary.com. You can see thousands of photographs. He's been all over Africa, Europe, New Zealand, Australia. Magnificent collection. Now, what is your future plans, and how are you where do you go from here now?
Well, I'm trying to. My dream is to wrap this Jewish Africa project up, which will be incorporating 30 African countries and territories, and I want to package it up into a nice traditional coffee table style book. I'm working with a publisher now, not officially signed on the dotted line yet, and that book, of course, would feature, hopefully, the images, say 300 or so of my photographs. But I've also rounded up 12 experts on Jewish Africa, a few scholars to contribute essays on different aspects of Jewish Africa, Jewish history to Jewish culture, and so that includes a couple of scholars, rabbis, other captains of the Jewish industry, if you will. So that looks pretty good, but it's a matter of getting it across the finishing line, which is really the hard thing. And also some photo shows. I hope to be doing a couple of photo shows here in South Africa, here in Joburg, Cape Town, perhaps one or two other locations where there's an opportunity. Currently, I have a show on at the Beit HaTfutzot Museum in Tel Aviv, Israel. It's a little small show, 34 images featuring some of the black communities of more the central part of Africa, for example, in Cameroon and Nigeria, Ghana, some images in there from Madagascar, for example, And there's one or two photos from South Africa and Swaziland as well. So, but overall, I think it's 8 countries that are included.
Have you been to Namibia?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've photographed there as well,
Yeah.
because a very strong Jewish community was in Namibia. Windhoek and, for example, Swakopmund and Luderitz.
Yeah, been
very,
there.
very strong
Yeah,
Jewish
yeah.
community there. Now, I'm going to ask you an odd question, because someone once asked me, what made you move to Japan? You've been living in Japan for, you said, 22 years.
Yeah, 22 years.
And where in Japan?
Osaka.
Osaka.
Yeah. What made me move there? Really nothing specific. When I was in graduate school in London, I somehow latched onto an interest in Japan. I started reading about it historically, its economics, its culture, and I just followed that through as an interest. And I went to Japan. I knew in my readings, I knew that if I go, I'd find a job, and I ended up working at university, which I still do. So that's my bread and butter, if you will. Or maybe I should say the bread and challah.
Do you lecture at university?
I do, in English, and that life gives me enough financial resources. And of course, working at university, I have as much holiday time as the students do. So
Yes.
that's upwards of 4 months of the year. So that combination has afforded me the time to do this travel. So that life blended into, a life of travel, and then that evolved into what I'm doing now.
Yeah, but now you mentioned graduate school in London. Which school where do you
University College London, which is a part of the University
and that
of
you got your
London. I did an MA in Modern English Language.
Modern English Language. Now, in Japan itself, is there any Jewish communities like?
Just expats.
Expats.
In Tokyo, there's a synagogue. I don't know how many people regularly go. I would imagine maybe, they have sort of a core of 100, 200 is a guess.
Right.
Obviously, the holidays draw out more people. Closer to Osaka, there's Kobe, which is...
Kobe had a Jewish community there.
Yeah, there's just about 30 minutes between the cities by train.
Right.
And they have a community also of expats. I haven't been there in a while, but again, I would imagine maybe about 100 people on the holidays.
During the war, a lot of them managed to get to Kobe.
Yeah, people came in. Yes, so people who came through Poland, Lithuania,
and there was that famous
the
Consul General Sugihara in Kovna.
Correct, and he issued upwards of 2,000 visas. He gave them transit visas. They went through Russia. They came they went all the way over to Vladivostok in the Far East. They were able to then take boats over to a port city called Suruga. And I visited Suruga about a year ago. It's about an hour and a half or so from Osaka. And it was, at that time, the only port that the Jews were allowed to enter. Right. From there, they then made their way over through to Kobe and then over to China to Shanghai.
Yes, they went to Shanghai. Yeah. They started yeshiva there.
Yes.
The Mir Yeshiva.
Right. And there in Suruga, there is a museum which features, it's not a museum dedicated to Chune Sugihara, but there's a big story.
There was a rabbi in Kobe called Rabbi Marvin Takoya. He wrote a book called The Fugu Plan.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that book, yes. Well, I met him. He came to South Africa on a tour, and I accompanied him. I was his guide around the country, and he gave us a beautiful history of Kobe, right? And, of course, as well, do you remember the reason for the Fugu Plan?
Well, it was part of trying to find a homeland for Jews.
Not really. The Japanese High Command, they realized if they had Jews in Japan, if they could bring as many Jews into Japan, it would develop the economy, the industry, like they saw what was going on in Europe. But if the plan failed, it would be a disaster, because fugu is a very, very delicate. It's a seafood. It's the
puffer fish.
Yes, fish, but it's a very highly poisonous fish, and if it's not prepared correctly within seconds, it's 1,000 times more dangerous than strychnine or whatever the other poison that the cyanide, whatever it is. But if prepared correctly, it is the most beautiful delicacy. And this is why it was called the Fugu Plan. If they brought the Jews in and succeeded, they would have been unbelievable today. But of course, the whole thing went the other way. So I want to thank you, Jono, for coming in and really It's been an absolute pleasure. And please, I want to see you before you go. But you're leaving on Saturday?
I'm leaving town on Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, but I'll be in touch with you. I've got your email.
Okay, and I'd like to thank you. This is my third time on with you. I'd like
Yes.
to thank you, your listeners. And as I said, this is my 8th and final trip. So at this point, I hope to be back, if I'm lucky, next year for a photo show. But the end of the photographic tours, this is it. So it's been quite a journey. And I thank everybody here in South Africa. I've made some amazing friends and met some amazing people. I've had a time of my life, and I can't thank people enough. And I'd just say very quickly that, as I always say, I'm the guy behind the camera, but it takes a community of Jews wherever I go behind me to make it happen, and the welcome and the assistance, and I'm just so grateful to everybody. So thank you.
Jono, if I can help you with any of the history of South Africa, if you need, I've got extensive archives. Like you mentioned much earlier there, you know, if a fire breaks down, it's good to keep. I always say to the public out there, don't throw anything away. You think it's important or you don't think it's important, just let me know. I'll come along. I came the other day to a home. I found unbelievable material which goes back about 100 years. You cannot buy this. It's not on the internet. On the history of photographs of South Africa, wedding invitations, bar mitzvah invitations, and this is so valuable. So if there's anything I can help you with, please feel free. And if any of the listeners want to contribute, you can SMS or send me an email to isaac@chai.com or isaac@chaifm.co.za, and I'll forward it on to Jomo as well, because it's going to be a wonderful. I want to be one of the first to get your coffee table books.
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you. Go well. Have a wonderful trip back. Nice seeing you, and enjoy the rest of your stay.
Thank you, Isaac. Take care.
Pleasure.
Bye.
A walk down memory lane with our very own Jewish encyclopedia. It's Talk of the Town with Isaac Reznik, only on your station, 101.9 Chai FM.
Welcome back. 10 minutes to 9. If you just tuned in, we interviewed Jono David. And I want to give you his website again. It's www.jewishphotolibrary.com. This is absolutely magnificent. Over 100,000 photographs of all the communities he's been to throughout Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Europe. Beautiful photographs. And you can get onto that website. Now, just to remind you, this Thursday evening, that's the 25th, at 7:30 at the Rabbi Cyril Harris Community Center, there's a talk by Stephen Robbins on his book, Letters of Stone, From Nazi Germany to South Africa. And that's this Thursday, the 25th, 7:30, 80 Rand, including refreshments. You can phone booking Hazel or Rene on 011 728 8088 or 8378. And also to remind you that Sunday, the 13th of March, Jewish Unity Sports Day, and you can call on 082 635 0849. For girls and boys, there are separate venues as well. Prizes, food on sale, music, kids penalty, kick competition. And also on the 13th of March at 5:30, the DL Link, partnered by 4, invite you to our Tambourine Cafe. Sunset, cheese and wine, musical event for women, marimba band, DJ and street acts on Rosebank Mall rooftop. Date the 13th, time 17:30, entrance to 70 Rand. For booking, you can call info@dllink.co.za. That is, you get onto the website. And then the other function I want to announce, Wednesday the 2nd of March at 6 p.m. at the Rabbi Cyril Harris Community Center, an exhibition of paintings by Tanda Mokosini Nagwena, and he was born in Amzimtoti in 1992, moved to Umlazi Township in Durban. A wonderful, wonderful collection of paintings. It'll be from Monday to Thursday, 9 till 4 p.m., Friday 9 to 12, Sunday 6 to 9:30, and that's at the Rabbi Cyril Harris Community Center. Now, yard sites this past week and this week, the 11th of Adar, because today is the 14th, was Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai, from 1724 to 1806, known as the Chidu. The 11th of Adar also, Rabbi Shmuel Straussen, 1794 to 1872, the Rashash in Vilna. Also on the 11th of Adar, Reb Yosef Rosen, 1858 to 1936, known as the Rogachover Gaon, the Rov of Dvinks. 13th Adar, that was yesterday, Reb Yehuda HaChosed, 1150 to 1217, Sefer HaChasidim, and of course the 13th Adar yesterday, very, very important, your side, very well known, Reb Moshe Feinstein, 1895-1986, Rov of Rublin, Rosh Yeshivas Tiferes Yerushalayim, known as the, it was a Godel in America, the official rabbi who gave all the rulings in that year from, when he was in the States. He arrived there, I know he came in 1936, just before the war with the children. So those were the Yortzites. I just want to mention something here, that also Shimon Peres will be talking this Sunday, and it's you have to phone the Biyachad Zionist Federation to book. I can't give you the venue, but please make every effort to go. He is, it's true, he's in his 90s. I saw him many years ago. I'm sure many of you remember. He spoke at the Linda Auditorium. So please get hold of the Zionist Fed and make your early bookings. And just to remind you that this Friday morning, Reflections of the Past between 9 and 10. And of course, the Art of the Canto. On this past Sunday, we celebrated our 7th anniversary. We'd have some wonderful greetings. I have some more to play, and I have a brand new CD. I'm not going to give you out. It's absolutely magnificent, that I received yesterday from one of the leading chazonim in the world today. It is absolutely outstanding. I'm going to play 3 of the tracks from that CD. So that's between 4 and 5. To remind you that this program is a rebroadcast this evening at 7 p.m. I want to thank Craig for controlling, to wish you all a wonderful day, a wonderful week. Go well. It's been a pleasure being in your company.